Welcome to MC Noctis. Tonight, stay close. The darkness has a story to tell. The men in my family do not celebrate their 50th birthdays. We bury them before the candles can be lit. My grandfather died beneath an apple tree at 49. His father drowned in a locked room. My uncle was found outside a cemetery with every bone in his body broken and not a single bruise on his skin. For most of my life, I called it coincidence. Then, 6 nights before my father's 50th birthday, something began growing beneath our kitchen floor. It knew his name. It knew mine. And it led me to 7 graves hidden beyond an abandoned farmhouse in West Virginia. The first 6 contained people who had been dead for more than a century. The 7th contained a body with my face. Its eyes opened while I was looking down at it. What happened next cost my best friend his life. It forced my father to confess what he had promised on the night I was born, and before the sun came up, I heard my dead mother calling to me from beneath the earth. She offered me the one thing I had wanted all my life. 9 minutes with her. All I had to do was let the grave keep my father. Turn down the lights. Put on your headphones. And if someone you love calls your name from beneath the floor, remember this. The dead may remember your voice, but so do the things that killed them. This is the Black Root Curse. I came home at 12:17 in the morning and found my father on his knees with a crowbar in his hands. Rain had blown through the open back door. The kitchen floor gleamed with water, except for a circle around him where the boards were dry and swollen, as if something hot were breathing underneath. "Dad?" He turned so quickly that the crowbar struck the table. "Get outside, Tyler!" His voice was calm. That frightened me more than if he had screamed. "What happened?" "It hasn't hurt you yet." Something scratched below my right foot, not the quick, nervous sound of a mouse. This was slow, deliberate. A nail dragging through dirt, pausing beneath each floorboard as though choosing where to come through. Dad threw himself into me. We hit the wall just as 3 black roots pierced the wood where I had been standing. They unfolded in the air, joint by joint, like fingers testing the room. Dad brought down the crowbar. The roots vanished. Beneath us, something pulled in a long breath through a mouth full of dirt. His shirt had opened at the collar. Black veins climbed from his chest to the base of his throat. "How long have those been there?" "Since Monday." "And you said nothing?" "You would have stayed." He crossed to the sink and unlocked a cabinet I had never seen him open. From it, he removed a cedar box and set it on the table. The last time I had seen that box, Uncle Henry was still alive. He had come to our house before dawn, barefoot and covered in cemetery mud. His fingernails were missing. He kept staring behind himself, whispering that the grave men had followed him home. 3 days later, they found him outside the Bennett cemetery. His skin was unmarked. Inside it, every bone had been turned the wrong way. Now the cedar box knocked once from within. Dad opened it. A yellow finger bone rested beside a cassette labeled in Henry's handwriting. "Play when the root returns." Fresh soil clung to both. The finger bone rolled across the table and stopped with its tip pointing east toward the abandoned Wren farmhouse. "No Bennett man has lived to 50 in 4 generations, Dad said. "I have 6 nights left. If I die with the mark on me, it passes to you." The telephone rang. It had been disconnected for 8 years. Dad did not move, so I answered. At first, I heard only a shovel entering wet soil. Then Uncle Henry whispered through the dead line, "Tyler, don't open the 7th grave." 2 children began crying behind him. The kitchen floor rose hard enough to overturn the table, and from beneath the boards, using a woman's voice neither of us had heard in 21 years, something said my name. Dad made me promise not to go to the Wren House. At 1:10, while he slept with a kitchen chair braced beneath his bedroom door, I took Henry's cassette and climbed out my window. Jenna Cole was waiting in her truck. Marcus Reed sat beside her, irritated that I had refused to explain anything over the phone. Marcus had been my closest friend since 3rd grade. When Uncle Henry died and half the school started calling my family cursed, Marcus broke a boy's nose for saying I would be next. He never believed in ghosts. He believed me when I said I was afraid, which mattered more. 10 minutes, Jenna said when we reached the dead cornfield. "If you're not back, we come in." The Wren farmhouse stood beyond the stalks, leaning toward Ashfield Cemetery. None of its windows reflected our headlights. I crossed the porch alone. The front door opened before I touched it. Inside, the air smelled of wilted flowers. A chair scraped away from the wall and turned toward me. Family portraits covered the staircase. Every face had been scratched away, except that of a young woman in a blue dress. Nora Wren. I knew the name from one of Henry's journals. The truck horn sounded outside. I looked through the window. Jenna was waving for me to come back. Marcus had vanished from the passenger seat. Someone whispered behind me, "Tyler." Marcus stood at the top of the staircase. "How did you get in?" "I heard you on the truck radio," he said. "You were begging me not to leave you." The truck did not have a working radio. He pressed one finger to his lips. The front door slammed. The walls tightened. Wallpaper pulled flat as the entire house drew a breath. Then it exhaled. Somewhere overhead, a rope accepted the weight of a body. Creak. Marcus backed into the dark hallway. "My sister is up here," he said. His sister had been dead since we were 14. I ran after him. The second floor was longer than the house. A red thread ran beneath a closed door. Photographs showed Dad beside Nora, Uncle Henry at the bottom of a well, and me hanging from an oak beam with my eyes open. From behind the closed door, Marcus said, "She's alive, Tyler." I played Henry's cassette. Static filled the hallway. "If you're hearing this," Henry's recorded voice said, "the house has already shown you someone you want back. Do not follow them. It cannot raise the dead. It can only teach the dead how to beg." The door opened. An oak beam crossed the room. Hundreds of red threads were tied around it, each bearing a name. Marcus, Calvin, Tyler. A noose hung from the center. Marcus stood beneath it, smiling at something I could not see. "She's right above me," he whispered. The rope dropped around his neck. I caught his arm, but the noose ripped him from my grip. His feet kicked above me. The beam bent lower, as if the house were bowing to watch. A woman in a white dress descended beside him. Her neck was broken. Her face changed as she came closer. Marcus's sister, Uncle Henry, my father, then my mother. 9 minutes, she whispered. "Wouldn't you like them back?" The floor split beneath me. I fell through the house, through roots and black soil, while Marcus's shoes hammered against the ceiling above. The last thing I heard was Jenna screaming outside. The last thing I saw was the woman pulling Marcus higher into a darkness that had no roof. I woke inside a grave with a dead woman watching me breathe. A black candle burned on the lid of an open coffin. Roots moved through the walls like veins beneath thin skin. The woman wore the blue dress from the photographs. Half her face was young and pale. The other half was a skull. Nora Wren. That was my married name. Something crawled above us. A mud face pressed through the ceiling, roots turning inside its mouth. My father's voice came from it. She belongs to the people who cursed us. Nora held the candle higher. The face withdrew. It tells the truth when the truth is useful, she said. My grandmother paid Gideon Voss to poison the Bennett bloodline. 6 people gave him money. He gave them a promise. No Bennett son would reach 50. She removed a rusted iron ring from the coffin. 7 names were engraved inside it. When she pressed it into my palm, I saw lanterns among the graves. I saw 6 townspeople standing around the body of Josiah Bennett. A thin man in a coat sewn with animal teeth knelt beside him. 7 black stitches sealed Gideon Voss's mouth. Whenever he raised one hand, the teeth on his coat chattered together, and a different dead voice spoke for him. He opened Josiah's chest and placed a human skull between his ribs. Then he filled the dead man's mouth with black roots. Voss, Nora whispered beside me. He hid himself inside the first man he cursed. 6 graves hold those who hired him. Josiah is the 7th. Open them, burn with the guilty offer, and return Voss's name to the earth before your father turns 50. Why are you helping me? For the first time, the living half of her face looked ashamed. Because they hanged me here to keep the graves asleep. She closed my fingers around the ring. And because I have already lied to you. Before I could ask how, Marcus screamed above us. Nora shoved me backward into the coffin. Wake up before he stops. The lid slammed over my face. I opened my eyes in the cornfield at dawn. Jenna was kneeling over me. Her hands and jacket were covered in blood. She told me the dead radio in her truck had turned on by itself. My voice came through it, begging Marcus not to leave me inside. Before she could stop him, he said, "I'm not leaving him," and ran into the house. Marcus hung from the abandoned gas station sign half a mile away. There was no rope above him. Each time someone raised a ladder, his body moved higher. At noon, he fell. He had been dead since 1:17 that morning. When I returned home, Dad sat at the kitchen table, listening to the end of Henry's cassette. "Calvin," Henry's voice said, "when Tyler brings back the ring, tell him what you bought on the night he was born." Dad stopped the tape. The black veins had reached his jaw. "Your mother was supposed to die before she delivered you," he said. "I went to Josiah's grave and asked for help." I looked at the moving darkness beneath his skin. What did it cost? He could not meet my eyes. Me. My mother had been in labor for 20 hours when her heart began to fail. Dad told me this without looking up from the table. The doctors could save her or deliver me, not both. So he left the hospital, drove through a storm, and knelt beneath the dead apple tree where Josiah Bennett was supposed to be buried. He begged the darkness for 2 lives. It offered him 9 minutes. My mother lived long enough to hear me cry and hold me against her chest. In return, I would remain untouched until I turned 21. And Dad would belong to the root before 50. "You traded your life for 9 minutes?" I asked. "For your whole life." "You should have told me." "And what would you have done with that knowledge? Started dying for me sooner?" The floor knocked beneath his chair. For 5 days, Jenna and I searched Henry's journals for the 6 graves. We slept in shifts. Every night, the roots spread farther through the house. They grew inside the walls and whispered in Marcus's voice. At his funeral, the ropes lowering his coffin pulled upward until 6 men had to drag him into the ground. On the 6th evening, the mark reached Dad's lower lip. We returned to the Wren farmhouse with an axe, 2 cans of kerosene, and the iron ring. Red threads hung from every ceiling, bearing our names. Beneath the oak beam waited my own hanging body. Dad heard my mother. Jenna heard Marcus. I heard both. Ropes burst from the plaster. While Jenna cut Dad free, I struck the beam until the house screamed through every nail. The woman in white dropped beside me, wearing Marcus's face. "You left me here," he said. I nearly answered. Dad split the beam with the crowbar. We dragged it downstairs as every door opened onto a room filled with hanging Bennett men. Outside, the kerosene caught on the 3rd match. Green fire traveled through the oak. Nora appeared in an upstairs window, the noose buried in her neck. She held it with both hands while the house tried to pull her back. When the beam collapsed into ash, the rope broke. The wall beneath it opened. Inside was a cemetery map and a page in Nora's handwriting. 6 gave payment. 1 innocent holds the door. The 7th grave is a mouth. Blood opens it. Debt follows the named. The mouth closes on a body or a name. Dad read the final line twice. From the dead orchard beyond the house, 6 coffins knocked in answer. His watch showed 11:12. 48 minutes remained before his 50th birthday. The map led us to the Bennett cemetery, where 6 blank stones had risen from the mud. They formed a circle around the dead apple tree. Jenna carried embers from the oak beam in an iron pan. Dad brought shovels. I wore the ring, although its metal had tightened until I could feel my pulse inside it. Nora waited beside the first stone. "Once you begin," she said, "do not stop when they speak. Tell me what you lied about." She looked toward the apple tree. "After the 6th grave." I pressed the ring against the first stone. Elias Crow appeared beneath my hand. The earth opened. The corpse inside had no eyes, but its head turned to follow me. One dry hand unfolded over its chest. A finger bone lay in its palm. When I took it, every tree in the cemetery leaned toward us. The 2nd grave belonged to Abram Crow. His lips moved around a nest of black roots. "2," he whispered. The 3rd stone revealed the name Walter Kincaid. When I took his bone, Dad vomited soil. The 4th belonged to Samuel Kincaid. As his bone touched my hand, something began walking beyond the fence. It was man-shaped, made of cemetery mud, with a deep hole where its face should have been. The 5th stone bore the name Thaddeus Morrow, but the corpse inside wore Jenna's face. She watched herself decay in the coffin, while it held out the bone. "Don't look at me," she whispered. I took it without meeting either Jenna's eyes. The 6th grave bore the name Edith Morrow. Nora's grandmother sat upright before the earth had finished opening. Her hand closed around my wrist. "My granddaughter did not tell you the price," she said. Her voice
came from beneath my skin.
The seventh grave makes a body for the blood that opens it. She needs you to wake the mouth, because your death will free her.
Nora seized Edith's arm. The two dead women struck each other with such violence that the grave split wider.
"Take the bone!"
Nora screamed. I tore it from Edith's hand. 6 bones lay in my palm. Beyond the fence, dozens of mud figures pulled themselves from the ground. I faced Nora. "Is it true?" Her skull showed clearly through the ruined half of her face. "If the 7th grave stays closed, the curse sleeps and takes your father. Then it takes you. If it opens, it can be killed."
"And you go free?"
"Yes."
"You used me."
"Yes." The honesty landed harder than any excuse. Dad looked at his watch. 11:41. Black roots moved behind his eyes. He raised the shovel and walked toward the apple tree. "You can hate the dead tomorrow," he said. "Tonight, keep digging." We broke through the roots beneath the tree at 11:53. The 7th coffin was buried upright. Its lid faced us like a door. From inside, something knocked with my exact rhythm. 3 quick taps, 2 slow. The way I had knocked on Dad's bedroom door since childhood. I wanted to run. Instead, I pulled the lid open. My own body stood inside. Its skin was white. Black roots had been sewn through its lips. Behind it lay the skeleton of Josiah Bennett, twisted upright around a second skull lodged inside his ribs. Gideon Voss. The corpse wearing my face opened its eyes. They were full of soil.
"Thank you,"
it said,
"for giving me somewhere to live."
The clock in the distant church began striking midnight.
On the first stroke of midnight, my double stepped out of the coffin. On the second, Dad fell to his knees. On the third, every grave in the cemetery opened its mouth. The mud figures crossed the fence. Jenna threw the 6 finger bones into the iron pan. Green flame rose from the embers and wrapped around them. Marcus appeared on the other side of the fire. He looked exactly as he had before the rope took him. His shoulder was whole. His eyes were wet and frightened. "Jen, put it out," he said. "Every bone you burn burns part of me." Jenna stopped with the kerosene can in her hand. The fire shrank. In the open graves, 6 dead faces began to smile. Marcus reached across the pan. "You can still bring me home." Jenna was crying when she poured the kerosene. "Marcus died because he came back for Tyler," she said. "He would never ask me to leave him now." The flames swallowed his face. His scream came from all 6 graves. My double reached for me. I drove Henry's knife into the roots crossing Josiah's ribs. Voss's skull turned and bit my wrist. Cold flooded me with every Bennett death. My grandfather beneath the apple tree. Uncle Henry crawling from the cemetery. My mother's 9 minutes disappearing from a hospital clock. Then I saw Gideon Voss as he had been in life. He knelt before 6 resentful families with his mouth sewn shut. He called their envy an illness and the Bennett name its cause. For each name they spoke, he pulled one of his teeth, carved it, and sewed it onto his coat. He had made hatred look like medicine. I twisted the knife. The roots snapped. The skull fell free, and one black tooth dropped into my hand. My double collapsed. Its body unstitched itself into 1,000 roots. They entered Dad through his mouth.
7 black lines appeared across his lips, closing them like Voss's stitches. All around us, the teeth of the 6 corpses began to chatter. Together, they spoke with my father's voice. A father promised. A son opened the door. Choose which debt the earth should keep. The ground beneath the apple tree opened wider. It was not a grave. It was a throat lined with roots. Dad fought his own body long enough to grab me. Then he threw himself backward into the pit. I caught his wrists. The roots pulled from below. The mud figures closed around us from every side. Jenna filled a clay jar with the 6 ashes, Voss's tooth, creek water, and Josiah's bones. "The ring!" she shouted. It would not come off my hand. 7 cuts opened beneath it. My blood ran over the engraved names. My mother appeared on the other side of the grave. She looked 24. Her yellow hospital gown moved in a wind I could not feel. "Let him go," she said. "The bargain ends with him. I can give you the 9 minutes we lost." Dad looked up at her. For one terrible moment, hope crossed his face. Then he tightened his grip on me. "Your mother died to keep you alive," he gasped through the stitches. "She would never ask you to buy her with someone else." The thing wearing her face smiled. Its jaw opened to its chest. Roots poured out. Nora stepped between us. The old noose appeared around her neck and pulled tight, but she did not move away. "The curse has only one trick," she said. "It teaches love to choose a victim."
The page from Nora's diary flashed in my mind. Debt follows the named. The names inside the ring were not instructions for opening graves. They were a list of those who owed the debt. I tore the iron through the flesh of my hand and dropped it into the jar. Then I spoke the 7 names. Elias Crow, Abram Crow, Walter Kincaid, Samuel Kincaid, Edith Morrow, Thaddeus Morrow, Gideon Voss. With each name, 1 row of mud figures turned away from us. With the 7th, they faced the open graves. I pushed the jar into the throat beneath the tree. "No more Bennetts," I said. "Take the people who made you." The cemetery became silent, but the mouth did not close. The roots tightened around Dad's legs. A sentence from Nora's diary returned to me. The mouth closes on a body or a name. "What does it mean?" I asked. Nora strained against the noose. Cracks spread through the living half of her face. "If you refuse it a body, it will keep the name that opened it." "Then let it take my name." "Not the word," she said. "The place your name holds inside the person who made the bargain." I looked down at Dad. He understood before I did. The curse would let him live, but it would take every memory in which I was his son. Dad shook his head. "No, let me go." 21 years earlier, he had traded his life for 9 minutes and called it my whole life. Now I finally understood him. "You gave me my whole life," I said. "Let me give you the rest of yours." I put both hands around the jar and spoke into the open earth. "My name is Tyler Bennett." Something pulled behind my eyes. I saw myself disappear from Dad's memory. My first steps vanished from a sunlit room. My 5th birthday emptied around him. Christmas mornings lost a chair. Every time he had carried me, punished me, forgiven me,
or waited for me to come home became a door opening onto nothing. Dad screamed as 21 years were torn out of him. The earth released his legs. Jenna pulled him clear while I covered the jar with soil. The roots did not burn. They began to grow backward. They tore from the mud figures and Dad's mouth, then crawled toward the 6 coffins. Across the valley, every black strand returned to the dead hands that had paid for it. The 6 corpses closed their fingers. 7 voices screamed below us. The mouth beneath the apple tree swallowed once. Then the earth sealed. The woman wearing my mother's face stood in the rain. For 9 seconds, she looked at me with something almost like sorrow. Then her features loosened into soil and washed away. Dad lay motionless beside the grave. The black veins disappeared from his skin. His chest did not rise. I called his name until my voice broke. At last, he coughed a mouthful of clean water and began to breathe. At sunrise, Nora stood beside her grave with a whole face. "Was any of it true?" I asked. "Enough of it," she said. She smiled at an unlocked door only she could see. Then the morning light took her. Dad opened his eyes. He looked at Jenna, then at me. There was no recognition in his face. "Who are you?" he asked. The curse had not kept a body. It had kept my name.
My father turned 50 that morning. He lived another 31 years. He remembered the house, the cemetery, my mother, and every member of our family except me. At the hospital, he studied my face with embarrassed kindness and asked whether we had met before. "Not yet," I said. I introduced myself. We built a new relationship from the morning after the curse. He came to trust me. In time, he even loved me in the quiet way a person loves a friend who has never left. But he never remembered carrying me on his shoulders, teaching me to drive, or trading his life for mine. He never called me son again. The Wren farmhouse collapsed before winter. We buried Nora in the churchyard beneath a stone bearing the name she had before marriage. Nora Morrow. Marcus lies 2 rows away. Jenna still leaves flowers for him every October. She and I married 7 years after the night in the cemetery. Dad sat in the front row because I asked him to, although he did not understand why that empty chair beside him belonged to my mother. We named our daughter Natalie. The first time Dad held her, he quietly called her Nora. He never knew why. No Bennett man has died before 50 since that night. Nothing scratches beneath our kitchen floor. Dad died at 81, with Jenna and me beside him. His final words were an apology for feeling that he should know me. The night after we buried him, rain struck the windows, and 3 quick knocks, followed by 2 slow ones, sounded from inside the wall. It was the knock I had used on his bedroom door since childhood. I never answer, not because I believe the curse survived, because I no longer know whether the thing that remembers me is my father, Nora, or whatever kept my name beneath the apple tree. And that was the Black Root Curse. Some families inherit property, money, or a name. Others inherit an old fear and are taught to call it fate. The Bennett curse survived because it offered every generation the same cruel choice. Sacrifice someone you love, or become the sacrifice yourself. Tyler did not defeat it by being fearless. He defeated it by refusing to make another innocent person pay. But the victory was not free. He saved his father's life and lost every memory that had ever made him a son.
Would you save someone you loved if the price was that they would never remember loving you? If a grave offered you 9 minutes with someone you had lost, what would you give to hear their voice again? And how would you know it was truly them speaking? Tell me your answer in the comments. If your family or hometown carries a legend people discuss only after dark, share it below. It may inspire a future story. Thank you for spending this night with me. If this story stayed with you, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more ghost stories, family curses, and late-night horror. This is MC Noctis. Until we meet again, remember this. Not every voice from the dark is asking to be saved. Some are only asking to be invited in.